Welcome everyone to the Tuesday, August 19th, 2025 Tumwater City Council meeting. And we will start off with roll call.
Councilmember Liada Dahoff,
She's excused.
Councilmember Angela Jefferson,
Present.
Councilmember Joan Cathy,
Present.
Councilmember Eileen Swarthout,
Present.
Councilmember Michael Althauser,
Present.
Councilmember Peter Agabi,
Present.
Councilmember Kelly Von Holtz,
Present.
Mayor Debbie Sullivan.
And I'm here. Join me in our salute to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we have one special item this evening, which is a proclamation for International Overdose Awareness Day, which will be August 31st, and Councilmember Agabi will be reading the proclamation.
Proclamation. Whereas observed on August 31st every year, International Overdose Awareness Day seeks to create a better understanding of overdose, reduce the stigma of drug-related deaths, and create change that reduces the harms associated with drug use. And whereas overdose deaths occur in our communities among people from every walk of life, and whereas overdose deaths are preventable and can be caused by alcohol, over-the-counter medicine, stimulants, opioid, and other substances. And whereas, like many places across Washington State, we need to continue to treat drug-related harm as public health issue and invest in best practices that save lives and build communities. And whereas anyone can visit the statewide resources at www.stopoverdose.org to obtain naloxone and an opioid overdose reversals medication and recovery helpline at 1-866-789-1511 for 24-hour information and help. And whereas Tumwater stand beside those who have lost loved ones to an overdose and who have substance use disorder and are diligently working towards recovery. Now, therefore, David Sullivan, Mayor of the City of Tumwater, do hereby proclaim August 31st, 2025, International Overdose Awareness Day, and call upon the people of the City of Tumwater to join with her in raising awareness and around drug overdose by reducing stigma through initiatives related to education, prevention, treatment, and recovery support for substance use disorder. Signed in the City of Tumwater, Washington, and recognized on this 19th day of August in the year 2025.
Thank you. I believe we have a couple of members of the Thurston County Public Health Department, and I believe, and hopefully I don't mispronounce your name. Katari?
Kateri.
All right, welcome, and I will present the proclamation after you're done speaking.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Kateri Wimsett. I use she, her pronouns, and I work for the Thurston County Health Department. First of all, I want to thank the council and the City of Tumwater for taking time this evening to recognize this day in our community and for issuing this proclamation, as you have for several years. It really helps to spread awareness and promotes this conversation as a topic within our community. It's my honor to work as a health educator as a part of the opioid response program at Public Health. And I want to start off by a huge thanks to Councilmember Dahoff, who's an active member of the Thurston County Opioid Response Task Force and who's really active. We have 4 work groups: prevention, treatment, overdose, and pregnant and parenting, and she's very active in many of those things. I also want to highlight that Tumwater is really fortunate to have quite a bit going on in the prevention realm with the work of Tumwater Hopes. And I know Councilmember Jefferson is really involved in that group and such a leader, which is really great for this community because they work not only to promote health, but to support and resilience activities for families and children that make such a difference long-term when we talk about prevention. Overdose Awareness Day is a day that remembers those who've been lost due to an overdose and for those that care about them and love them. And so this effort is really grounded in a community-wide effort to prevent and to end overdose. So we're hosting a community-wide event on August 27th, which is next Wednesday, at Heritage Park in downtown Olympia from 2 to 7 p.m. We'll have a variety of ways there to memorialize people, lots of folks to talk about with this issue. We'll also be offering naloxone and on-the-spot training that day. And we, as a side note, do that regularly. If you or anyone in the viewing audience wants to be trained on naloxone, Public Health is happy to do that at no charge. We train over 100 different groups every year, everybody from students to schools to businesses to people's book groups, their birthdays. We'll come out and do it. We'd be happy to do it. But thank you so much.
Great, thank you. So here's a proclamation. And also a pen. And I believe you brought someone else with the department? Yes, so thank you very much. Thank you. All right, our next item is public comment. And I want to remind those who have public comment that public comment is limited to 3 minutes, and it will be done in a respectful way with addressing the council as a whole. So we do have a clock here. First, I'm going to go, is anyone online signed up? Okay, I have one person signed up in Chambers, and it's Courtney Holmans. If you can come to the podium. And state your name and address for the record.
My name is Courtney Marie Holthouse. My address is 6605 Laramine Court Southwest. My name is Courtney Marie Holthouse, and I am the plaintiff in a federal civil rights lawsuit against the Washington State Department of Corrections, the Tumwater Police Department, Multicare, and Providence St. Peter's Hospital. Already, Multicare, Department of Corrections, and Providence have, of course, filed motions to dismiss with prejudice, as if they expect me to stop pushing, as if they believe silencing me will erase what's been done. Digital tampering, harassment, and months of suffering with no relief. I'm already preparing opposition briefs and I'm not going anywhere. But while they're trying to shut me down, let's not forget the bigger picture. When I worked for DOC, I processed housing vouchers for repeat violent offenders, including serial child offenders, while law-abiding families are often left struggling to keep a roof over their heads, while abused children suffer from PTSD just like I do. When I raised the concern, I was told, we don't make the rules. What a horrible excuse for one of the state's largest agencies to claim. This isn't just about me, it's about public safety, accountability, and a government that too often protects itself instead of protecting the people it serves. I will continue to fight for the vulnerable, and I won't be convinced to stop. I fight for others who've been pushed aside, and I don't care how bad it hurts me. There is nothing anyone can do to break me. I will keep getting up every time anyone tries to bring me down. I will show up over and over again. Consequences for atrocities matter. And no motion to dismiss and no retaliation is ever going to stop me. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that is the only one I had signed up. Is there anyone else in Chambers who wants to make public comment? I do not see anyone, so we will now move to the consent calendar. So do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
All right. It's been moved by Councilmember Von Holtz, seconded by Councilmember Althauser. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. All right, with that, we have approved the minutes of our City Council's Strategic Planning Retreat minutes of June 27th. Sorry, I have an allergy. Also approve the minutes of our strategic planning retreat minutes from June 28th. Approval of the minutes of the city council work session of July 8th. Approval of the minutes of the city council meeting of July 15th. Approval of the city council work session minutes from July 22nd. Payment vouchers and Department of Enterprise Services contract usage agreement. So all of those things were passed on the consent. And now we're going to be moving into a public hearing. Again, we will have staff do a briefing, but what we're going to be doing is conducting a public hearing on Resolution R 2025-00011 on 93rd Avenue Southwest and Case Road annexation. There was a sign-up sheet in the back of the room. If anyone wants to give testimony, staff will make a presentation. We'll answer any questions from council. Following the staff report, I will open up for public comment. And so when we get to the public comment portion, I will confirm what we need to do at that point. So with that, I will send it to Brad Mudrud to go ahead and present.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. Before you tonight is Resolution R 2025-011. It's addressing the 93rd Southwest and Case Road Southwest annexation. The intent tonight is to conduct a public hearing on the proposed annexation resolution for the council to receive public testimony and then for the council to decide whether to approve the resolution. A little bit of background again on the annexation. The owners of two properties on 93rd Avenue Southwest in Tumwater's urban growth area have requested to be annexed into the city. The property's owners have indicated their willingness to assume their portion of the city's indebtedness and also to accept the current land use designations for their property. The proposed annexation area again consists of two parcels that are located northwest of the intersection of 93rd and Case Road. The two parcels together are about 10.74 acres in size. Both of the parcels have a light industrial zone district designation with an airport overlay and are undeveloped aside from a house and some outbuildings. The first property that is part of this annexation is that orange box in the lower left. It's located at 1020 93rd Avenue Southwest. It's owned by Nathan Wanch, and it's about 4.87 acres. The second property is at the corner, closer to Case and 93rd. It does not have a site address and is owned by John and Diane Elwin. It is 5.87 acres in size. Timeline for the process that we've gone through on February 5th of this year, 10 and 60% annexation petitions applications were filed with the city. Those applications were deemed complete after the payment of fees on March 18th. The General Government Committee was briefed on the proposed annexations on their April 15th meeting and then forwarded this on to council on May 6th. Council at that time met with the petitioners, accepted the proposed annexation for further processing, and determined that the city will require assumption of existing indebtedness by the annexation area. On June 3rd, the county assessor certified that the petitions were legally sufficient. This was followed on July 9th by the General Government Committee setting the date for this tonight's public hearing. On July 25th, the clerk's office published the public notice in the Olympian and had the notice posted on on the annexation area in 3 public spaces. And then tonight, the council is conducting the public hearing on the resolution. Format for the public hearing is specified by the RCW is that there are no statutory requirements concerning the actual hearing other than to give proponents and opponents of the annexation an opportunity to speak before the council. The next steps, provided that the council approves the resolution, are that the applications will then go to the Boundary Review Board for their review. If the Boundary Review Board approves the annexation applications, then it would come back to the City Council for an ordinance to establish the official effective date of the actual annexation. And then a notice of annexation would be published and the annexation would be complete. That is it. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions from council? All right. With that, I will go ahead and open up the public hearing for testimony. And again, at this time, when I call your, we have a sign-up sheet in the back. And we do not have any names on the sign-up sheet. So if there's anyone do we have anyone signed up online? No one online. So if there's anyone in council chambers who wants to give public testimony in our public hearing this evening, please step forward. All right, no one has done, no one is moving forward to give testimony. So with that, I will close the public comment or the testimony. And then I will ask for council what you would like to do at this time.
So, since there are no opposition against or support of, I think then it would be proper if we vote for adoption of the resolution.
So you're making a motion to adopt the resolution?
Yes, yes, Mayor.
All right.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Agabi, seconded by Councilmember Althauser. Any discussion on the motion? Councilmember Swarthout.
I'm in favor of this motion. It's been through, we have had a chance to meet with the owners, the petitioners, and it's been through general government. And I appreciate, it shows the patience that, and how long it takes to go through the process. And I appreciate their patience. And but I'm in favor of this, that we adopt this motion.
Any others? All right, with that, I will call for the vote. All those approve the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, everyone. And just for those in public, we've been on recess for the last 3 weeks, so I am trying to get caught up and get my voice back as far as processing meetings. So today is the first day back. All right, so next item is council consideration and is the community survey results. And Jason, I believe, will be starting us off.
Yep, I'm just going to introduce my team member here with DHM. Hello, Mayor, members of the council. For the record, I'm Jason Wetstein, Communications Manager for the city. And tonight is the third time you'll be hearing from DHM Research. We had an introduction to the survey early on, right? The methods, and then we had a meeting about the statistical survey and the highlights there. The statistical survey, meaning any person in the city could be as equally possibly chosen to participate as any other. And then we had the community engagement portion of the survey, which is the one that we used outreach to try to gather perspectives, and we kept those two populations separate. And Kara is here to provide sort of the wrap-up presentation on the 2025 survey effort of both surveys, highlights. In your packet, you'll find the surveys, as the report as well, a very long report. So she's not going to be able to cover all of that, but she's going to be able to provide highlights. And I don't want to steal any of Kara's thunder here, but I do want to say that DHM Research has been incredible to work with. They listened, they tried to make it for Tumwater. They made it something that took in our needs and also brought expertise from working with around the state, around the nation, and I learned a lot from it. And I want to say that I've been returning to these survey results again and again in my daily over the past few weeks that I've had the final results. And a little aside, last week I went to the Thurston County Resource Hub and started handing out things for utility assistance and to get people involved in planning and just a little bit about what's happening in Tumwater. And this is good karma, right? This is something that's good to do, but there are hundreds of good things to do on any given day. And having the research, having that survey, I could look and see that that was legitimized or at least substantiated in the survey, that action. Now, not every action I take over the next year is going to be substantiated by the survey, but it sure does help when you're trying to prioritize. And I think we have an opportunity to use this tool amongst many others in planning and legislating and policymaking. And so with that, I want to start by finish by saying that, when we started this whole process, the sort of working hypothesis was that if we know our community better and know their perspectives and their values better, we're more likely to be on track with them. And so I'm hoping this is starting to build that track. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kara with DHM. So.
Hello, Mayor Sullivan, members of the council. Thank you for having me here today. For the record, my name's Kara Kernachik. As Jason said, I'm a research manager at DHM Research, and I'm here to talk through the final results of this survey. And not only should you guys receive the full report of the survey, upon request, you can also get the crosstabs. So if you have very specific demographic questions, you will have access to that information. I do not have it up here with me, and we do not have the time in the world to do all of that today. So I just want you to know that you do have access to that. And if you have any other questions, I can also look into it and send you an email afterwards. Okay. Am I doing this right? Okay, there we go. All right, so Jason gave a great overview of this, but just to reiterate, the reason that we did this research was twofold. The first was to assess satisfaction with city services and also to better understand what the community wants the city to prioritize in hopes of helping to inform the city's strategic plan. And then also to establish a baseline for both of these things if the city wants to continue doing this type of research going forward. As Jason said wonderfully, we did 2 surveys, so I'm not going to go too much into the methodology, but for the statistically valid survey, again, this is a random sample of City of Tumwater residents. And so we set quotas by age, gender, race and ethnicity, education level, and income to ensure that this is a representative sample of Tumwater residents. And to note that we have a margin of error of plus or minus 5.7% here. And then for our second survey, we did the community engagement portion. And so this survey was promoted and distributed by Jason and Lisa and their team to make sure that this got out into the public and people could choose to participate in this. We were able to get 273 respondents to this survey, so slightly less than the statistically valid survey, which was N of 300. And just to say again, the results of this survey do not represent the general public of Tumwater. It is specifically most likely the group of people who you are probably hearing from the most, who are most likely to be giving feedback to the city council or engaging with the city, as this was something they saw out in the world and decided to opt into on their own. And the reason that we did this second survey was to see if there are any differences in the priorities and satisfaction levels among the group you're hearing from the most versus the City of Tumwater residents at large. So that's why we have the 2 different surveys, and you'll see that come up throughout the presentation. Okay, this is just a demographic breakdown of City of Tumwater residents reflective of the most recent American Community Survey. This is a demographic breakdown of the community engagement survey respondents, and I'll switch to a slide that shows some differences in a second. But I do want to highlight that for this survey, respondents were a bit less likely to respond to demographic questions, specifically race and ethnicity and income levels. So you can see on this slide that we have differences in response rates by age. We see that those over the age of 45 were more likely to participate in the community engagement survey. And also those with a college degree or more were more likely to engage, to participate in the community engagement survey There is a difference by race, but due to the fact that about 13% of respondents did not provide their race or ethnicity information, I don't want to make any conclusions about if that's representative of the difference from who you're hearing from. The same goes for income as well. All right. And just to give you a better picture of how much more likely you might be to hear from those who responded to the community engagement survey, we have 47% of the general Tumwater public have not engaged with the city in the past year, whereas those who responded to the community engagement survey, only 16% had not engaged with the City of Tumwater in the past year, and we provided all of those ways for them to choose that they had selected with them, or that they had interacted with you all, or just to provide another way that they've gotten in touch with the city. So what we're really hearing from with the community engagement survey is people who are very tuned in and giving you feedback. All right, going into the general mood in the City of Tumwater. Sorry, I'm having some clicker issues. There we go. People really like living here. 95% of the residents would say rate the quality of life in the City of Tumwater as excellent or good, with 50% saying that it's very good. And this is on par with other cities in the state of Washington, but it is, regardless, it is a really good result, and it's also captured in the community engagement survey as well. When we look at the demographics here, we see that the positive ratings on quality of life are high across all of the demographic groups. And so there might be some wobbles in that line there, but we do not find any statistically significant differences in quality of life ratings between the demographic groups here. So overall, your population really enjoys living in the city. When we asked residents about the top issue or the most important issue that they wanted the City of Tumwater leaders to address, they noted transportation infrastructure, homelessness, and housing affordability the most, with transportation infrastructure coming in at 18% of people mentioning that. I do want to say that the way this question is asked is it is an open-ended question where people can just write in what they think. And so those are not often one thing particularly. So our team goes through, we categorize and code the responses into different groups, and that's what you're seeing on the screen. There are about 20 other categories that people noted. These were just the ones with the most responses, but you'll see throughout this presentation that Tumwater residents are concerned, and it is top of mind for them about the transportation infrastructure here. When we compare the results of the general population to the community engagement respondents, we see that transportation infrastructure is still the highest concern, but it's actually a higher concern for those who responded to the community engagement survey. And we also see that crime and public safety growth, and then also the environment are higher priorities for the community engagement respondents than the general population. Okay, getting into the meat of this, of these results, we're going to talk about government performance and resident priorities. And I do want to say, please jump in if you have any questions. Just don't worry about waiting for the end. To start off, we asked residents to rate your performance on a handful of different things, not specific services, but just how they think you're doing overall. And I do want to note that people are very positive about the ability of the city leadership to deliver services efficiently. And this is not a small feat in a time when people generally do not feel that government is efficient or are upset with that. So I think that's a really positive result. People also feel as if city leadership creates a community where they feel like they belong. And a majority of residents do feel like they are kept informed about city matters. And then we have two things that are below the 50% line, but still hovering right around half. We have focusing on priorities that matter the most to residents. You are all doing this survey and asking people what matters to them. So I think that you guys are doing what you can here to better understand that. And then finally, managing the public's money. What I want to call out here is that this has the highest percent of respondents who don't know if you're managing the public's money well. And I think that indicates not that they have a negative perception of how you're managing the money. 45% of people think you're managing it well, but people don't really know what it means or what happens to their money when it goes into the black box of they pay their taxes and then now what? So I think if you want to improve that number specifically, it's really going to be about education and just being clear about what's happening, but that's always going to be something that people are confused about. So, okay. So this, oh no, one of the labels got moved. So this graph, I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about. For this section of the survey, we provided respondents with a list of services that the city currently provides, and we wanted to rank them both on the priority that they feel those services should have, and then also their satisfaction with the current delivery of those services. And what we did then was we have categorized them based on the average priority level and satisfaction level, and we've put them into 4 different groups. So that strengths box in the upper right-hand corner, which the availability of high quality drinking water, I don't know what happened to that label. It is in that top right box. Those are going to be high priority areas that people have high satisfaction with. So people are very satisfied with their availability of high quality drinking water, and they are also satisfied with the public safety services that they have received, both in police and fire and emergency services. In the lower right-hand corner, we see low priority strengths, so things that people are very satisfied with but consider lower priority services. In the left-hand corner, lower left-hand corner, we see low priority areas of improvement, so that's going to be things that people are less satisfied with than average, but do not consider them to be high priority services. And then the top left is going to be priority areas to improve. And so these are services that they consider to be high priority, and they are not as satisfied as they are with the others. In the full report, you can see that 3 and 5 respondents are satisfied with all of the city services that are being provided, minus maybe 1, which I think is responding to homelessness. But overall, there's high satisfaction among these, but because we've averaged it, we can separate them out. So we see that responding to homelessness, managing street construction and maintenance, and then also managing growth and development are the areas where people feel are very important for the city to be providing those services, and also where satisfaction is a bit lower. Street construction and maintenance is, again, people are worried about transportation, and this indicates that they're not only do they think it's important, they're not satisfied with where it is at in Tumwater. And then for responding to homelessness, this was also one of their top issues that they wanted the city to address. And so it's not surprising that it's also coming up here. And then managing growth and development, people that also can tie in with infrastructure, transportation infrastructure and things like that. So I think it's on people's mind as the city of Tumwater continues to grow. When we look at the community engagement results, we see that things shift from the general public. Managing growth and development moves from kind of barely in the priority areas to improve to firmly in the center of that box. And street construction and maintenance moves into barely strengths, but kind of just sits in the middle with people think it's average priority, people are average satisfaction with it. And then responding to homelessness moves down almost into that borderline of low priority areas to improve. So people aren't satisfied with it, but for this group of people, it is less of an urgent priority. Okay. Moving on to public safety, which we already know has a lot of positive sentiment around based off of that section. Nearly all residents feel confident in the city of Tumwater's fire and emergency medical services. So 94% overall feel confident. Almost 60% feel very confident about it. And that is also reflected in the community engagement survey. We asked people if they had interacted with fire and EMS in the last year, and about less than 1 in 5 had. And they all rated their interaction with fire and EMS very positively. I do want to highlight, though, that for here we have only a sample of 51 people, so demographic analysis is not a good idea here, but if you are curious about who specifically said those things, that is available in your crosstabs. And then we asked residents if they feel safe in the city of Tumwater, and 92% of people feel safe here, with almost half saying that they feel very safe in the city. We do see the numbers very slightly fall in the community engagement, but it's negligible and not necessarily statistically significant. So again, continues to be across the board, people feel safe here. And then when we look at the demographic differences here, again, we see that this feeling of safety is high across all of the demographic groups, and there are no statistically significant differences between any of these ratings. So just across the board, people feel safe in Tumwater. We did ask people what exactly contributes to them feeling safe in the city, and the most common response was police presence and low response times across both surveys, with about a third of people mentioning police presence and response times. Low crime rates and also a strong sense of community were other top mentioned reasons why people felt safe in Tumwater. Again, this was a question that was open-ended, and we coded and categorized the responses. So that is what is reflected here. We also asked residents if they had interacted with the police department in the past year, and over a quarter of residents indicated that they had. And again, we see that the majority of those who interacted with the police department said that they had somewhat or very good, the quality of their interaction was somewhat or very good. And again, this is a very small sample size, N of 84, a bit larger than the number of people who had interacted with fire and EMS. But again, not a large enough sample to do meaningful demographic analysis, but it is available in your crosstabs. Okay, moving on to homelessness. As I've mentioned before, homelessness is a top issue for residents. We've asked about it, or we asked about it, or it came up in many different ways throughout the survey. So when we asked open-ended, is this what your top priority is? Homelessness comes up as a top priority, as a top issue. People consider it to be 63% of people consider responding to homelessness as a city service to be a top priority, or an urgent or high priority. And then we see that satisfaction with the city's response to homelessness is at 48%. So still, that's not very, I think that is the lowest satisfaction rate with a city service. But again, you're still hovering around 50%. But it continues to be something that residents bring up and is top of mind for them. Community engagement respondents were more divided on homelessness response, but we see here that it's really more due to their uncertainty with their satisfaction with homelessness response rather than increased dissatisfaction. So 24% of community engagement respondents don't know how satisfied they are with homelessness response. And I think this comes down to residents aren't entirely sure what the city is doing when it comes to homelessness response. I think it isn't reflective. I think it's reflective of the amount of homelessness that is in Tumwater that they actually see, and then also they don't know what the city is actually responsible for or what the city is not. They just know what they see when they drive around. We then asked, asked residents what they thought, how they thought homelessness had changed over the past 2 years. And so community engagement respondents are more likely to think that homelessness has gotten worse over the last 2 years, while 61% of the general population of Tumwater feel that homelessness has stayed about the same. Okay, for these last few slides, I'm going to touch on community growth and environmental perceptions. We go into both of these topics more in depth in the full report, and there are other topics, but I want to be mindful of time. So we see that half of residents are satisfied with Tumwater's growth rate. So they think it's just about right. About a little less than a third feel like it's too fast, and then 14% do not think it is growing fast enough. These numbers stay relatively the same with community engagement respondents. However, 39% say that of community engagement respondents feel that Tumwater is growing too fast. And then we also asked residents what they think Tumwater's largest priority should be when managing its growth, and residents are divided on what would be the best or the most important thing for the city to do. However, we do see that 29%, or the most selected category, is that ensuring roadways and the transportation system can handle more people. So again, people are worried about the transportation infrastructure, and when they think about more people being here, they are even more worried about what the transportation infrastructure can handle. But then we also see, yes.
Councilmember Gabi.
Thank you, Mayor. So you hit at a very important topic. So on the one hand, they're worried about growth, growing too fast. On the other hand, they're worried about lack of transportation. So how do you put those together? Because when you're growing, you're going to need transportation. When you don't want to go too fast, you're not having facilities for transportation. So how do we square that?
If I'm understanding you correctly, I think people aren't saying that they think Tumwater's growing too fast because the transportation system can't handle the growth. For the most part, people think that it's growing at a good rate, but when they think about how the city should be trying to handle continued growth of Tumwater, they want to make sure that the city is paying attention to the fact that the transportation infrastructure needs to be able to handle that growth as it happens, and not saying that, oh, it's growing too fast because it can't handle it. Maybe some people feel that way, but overall, they want that to be top of mind for the city as it continues to grow.
I believe it's 31% that said the city was growing too fast.
Yes, 31% said it was growing too fast.
Okay, and then the lack of transportation or transportation not being adequate, that's what, 39%, 29% or thereabout?
Yes, and they want roads and transportations, make sure the transportation system can handle the growth, 29%.
So if I am a city planner, I think we have an issue on how to square that. I think we ought to have our city planning director put a plug on that at some point in time to see what we need to do to accommodate adequate transportation, because I know we do have that issue within the county itself. And there's just no two ways to handle that without, it is good at just doing everything. So I don't know how we square that.
I think, Councilmember Gotti, you're right. You're identifying the tension that we see every day between how we manage the growth and development that's happening in our community, and ensuring that we are both accommodating the growth appropriately, and then also in an attempt to address the concerns of those who think we're growing too quickly, how we try to manage and address those concerns at the same time. You're right, they don't always, they're not, they seem directly oppositional. I would agree with that, but I think that's inherent in what we do every day at local government in terms of trying to balance the concerns and needs. And I think what Kara's pointing out here is that there are 31% of the people that were surveyed that are concerned that we're growing too fast. But if you then ask people the next question, what should we do to manage that growth that's happening, regardless of whether you think it's too fast or not, the highest number of people are most concerned that in managing growth, you're looking at the transportation system. So I think that's how I look at this. And yes, it is always challenging to do the balancing act at the local government level regarding growth and how you manage it.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you, Lisa. All right. And then when we compare the results for how to best manage that growth, or, whoa, no, we're not doing that. Sorry. Moving on to our final question, when we asked people about their top priority when it came to conservation and the protection of the environment, we saw that for the general population of Tumwater, their top priority was construction permitting that will protect the environment and human health, with 28% of people selecting that option as their top priority. And then I do want to highlight that we have an option here that, as we're talking about transportation infrastructure and we're thinking a lot about the environment, I think EVs and EV infrastructure often goes hand in hand with that. And what I was surprised about here was that electric vehicle infrastructure and commute reduction options were not a top priority for people regarding the environment. And so I think that sits in a bit of contrast with all of the transportation infrastructure qualms and worries that were brought up throughout the rest of the survey. The EV infrastructure is not top of mind when it comes to environmental concerns for either the community engagement or the general Tumwater residents. And then for the community engagement respondents, they are actually would place a higher priority on conserving habitat for nature lovers, plants, and animals, and then compared to the construction permitting option of the Tumwater residents at large.
I see Councilmember Kathy's hand up in Zoom. Go ahead, Councilmember Kathy.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. This is very interesting, and I appreciate your going over it slowly enough that we can, kind of think about it for a few minutes. I think the greatest tension here, if you go, I thought about it in the previous slide about transportation and growth, is the tension between the environment and the environmental things and what people want. Because that environmental piece has shown up in some of your other slides also earlier on. And I think that's one of our big tensions, and it's consistently so. So I think how we balance in a climate crisis, our environment has a lot to do with how we handle our transportation, or how just overall, I think those two things of growth and the environment have always been, kind of neck and neck in concern. And I'd like to keep highlighting that the conserving of habitat is at a critical point, as well as roads and transportation. And speaking about roads and transportation, those were two different things there. One talked about the roads, which is our responsibility as a city. And then as far as transportation is concerned, I believe they're talking about buses, bus service, things that we need to coordinate or collaborate or something like that. I don't know, but I'm wanting to say that I think this survey is good. You've covered a lot of things. I've learned more from this one than some of the many others that I've seen. So thanks for your work. And there's no one here surprised that I want to keep conserving the habitat, a high priority. And I also want to see us grow in a good way. So thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a really good call out that this slide kind of brings everything together at the end of this presentation, that the core tensions that are happening here are transportation and then also the management of growth. It comes into both of those top two issues that people have, or priorities people have with the environment, is how your construction permitting is happening and then just general nature conservation in the city. And that all of those are at odds. And you have a very important job ahead of you to try and chart a path forward where you hold all of those things in the air at once.
Councilmember Jefferson, did you have a question? Okay, I see a hand up. I wasn't. Oh, all right. Thank you. Go ahead.
And that is the conclusion of my presentation.
Oh, great. All right. Any other questions or comments? I really appreciate your time, and I think this will be very beneficial for council and in the future. And so, Administrator Parks, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what Kara said earlier. We wanted to keep your packet not super large, and the crosstabs are, I find them a little bit complicated to look at, but they are available if you're interested in seeing that detail in terms of the response and how they complied with, or how they were compiled, and the results based on some of the demographic breakdowns that were made.
Just a quick comment. I see some low hanging fruit as far as some opportunities, like you had talked about going out as you were going out, that as far as just as far as engaging with our community, just some low, just like our budgeting thing, just like by the numbers, because we are a very fiscally responsible city, and unlike, and we should be noting that we really do, we do a very good job of managing our money, and just something just succinct, and for people that don't realize we do a good job of that, and just something real easy, and just something by the numbers or something, just things like that I think we have an opportunity, just little bullet things that just because you're so good about things like on Facebook, or just some of the things, just looking at the way people interact with us, just like, did you know, and just sharing those kinds of facts with people. So
yeah, I would agree, Councilmember Swarthout. The low hanging fruit are those areas where you saw the don't know responses, and that's really around financing and what it is that we are doing for homelessness, those types of things. Jason and I and Troy and I have already talked a lot just in the last couple of weeks about how we can implement different types of programs. I asked Jason to kind of take a look at it, and how do we take basic municipal finance 101, not the 201 that you all got, but the 101, and take it to people. Asking people to come to City Hall is a great idea. Posting on social media helps, but actually, can we develop some sort of a process where we're actively and proactively going out to the community? Maybe we're going out to HOAs, or maybe we're going out to, a Kiwanis club, or we're actually taking basic information about where do your taxes go? What does it mean to have a general fund? What are the sources of revenue? All that information, that's a big, huge mystery to a lot of people, and be able to take that to people as opposed to necessarily just always asking them to come to us for information. So definitely low hanging fruit, and small wins, right? In the grand scheme of things, in terms of then turning around and trying to deal with all of the really complicated things that we have to deal with every day, like balancing growth and development with protection of the environment. So for sure, very appreciative of the work DHM has done to help us really focus on areas where we can have some positive impacts.
All right. I see Councilmember Jefferson's hand is up now.
Yes, is the total number of people who answered a good amount? And for a city our size, what's an average?
Sorry, could you say that one more time? I cut
Yes,
out.
is the total number of people who responded to the survey a good amount? And what would be the average for a city our size?
Oh, for the number of people who responded,
Yes.
we were worried about being able to get over 200 people to respond to this survey for the statistically valid survey based on the population size, and we were able to get 300. So we were very pleased with the turnout, and it was enough for a statistically valid survey.
All right, excellent. So Tumwater came through.
Very engaged city, yes.
Councilmember Kathy.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to say one other thing that excited me when the people called out, and it was gleefully reported, sort of. I thought you got excited about the fact that people talked about our water. And I think that's a great thing, because this is, you know, I'm serving on the Orca board. We're an air agency, but it's kind of a whole environmental thing. And there are so many places struggling with water, having enough water and having clean water and good water and all of that. And we have a great water department, and our people there have done a really, really good job for the environment and for our drinking water. And I'm glad people talk about that often, and I'm glad that was captured in the survey. So thanks for either the way you put out questions or wrote them or asked people questions, because that's down in the river kind of stuff. So thank you for that.
May I have a question?
Councilmember Gabi.
So your 5.7 error rate, can you say on top of your head, in comparison to your previous survey of sample size of Tumwater, is that what you normally would look at, or you've seen in the past, 5.7 error rate?
So the 5.7 error rate is based off of the sample size that we have in comparison to the population. So it would be the same for, if we were to have more people, it would be a lower error rate. And then any surveys that had less people who answered it, it would be a much higher rate.
Okay, so if you have 5.7, your confidence interval will be what, 94.1, 94.3%?
Sorry, one more time?
Your confidence interval will be 94.3%?
95% confidence.
95, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Great. Any other questions or comments? All right, I think this is going to be very valuable information for us in the future, and I really appreciate all this work, and that the fact that we will be able to, if anyone wants to dig into deeper on any specific topic, they will be able to have access to do that. That is really great.
Yes.
So just for council and the public, this is just a presentation, so there's no action to be taken on this agenda item.
Thank you
very
all.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The next item on our agenda is the real estate contract with Lot for the purchase of the Deschutes Valley properties. And Dan Smith will be presenting.
Good evening, council. I guess I got to thank Councilmember Kathy for the great introduction she gave just a couple minutes ago. For our teams out there that do excellent work in water quality and operation and providing that drinking water to our public. But I'm here tonight to talk about the Deschutes Valley property acquisition, a real estate contract with the Lot Clean Water Alliance. You know, a little bit, you know, hopefully, you know, this presentation will review the process that we went through over the last year and a half with y'all and with the Lot Clean Water Alliance, talking about how we got here, what did we learn through this process, what's in the contract, going a little bit, you know, kind of a high level into the details, not the minutia of a lot of the language in there, but what does it really mean for us? And where do we go from here if you are to authorize us to move forward? This contract was reviewed by the Public Works Committee on June 5th, and they recommended approval via consideration in full City Council. So how do we get here? Way back in 2011, the Lot Clean Water Alliance acquired those three parcels you can see there highlighted on the screen on the left or on the right, and for production of reclaimed water. At that time, the planning of the region was looking at reclaimed water satellite facilities for the production of this reclaimed water in each jurisdiction. Over time, treatment technologies improved, lot operations improved, and so by the time their next master planning process completed in 2023, they recognized that there was no longer a need for a satellite facility that could increase their production at their downtown plant for Butt Inlet to kind of at least for the reclaimed water that lot was producing and was looking into the future to produce, didn't need a satellite facility in Tumwater. So they declared the property surplus and approached the city, if we were to be interested in acquiring the property. In 2023, council approved an MOU, a memorandum of understanding between lot and the city to move forward to determine, to undergo some feasibility, to take a look at how does the properties line up with city need. And then if it were to approve or align well, negotiate with lot on a real estate contract. So really, that's kind of the process we've been to up through tonight. In 2024, last year, after notifying lot that we were interested in acquiring properties, we undertook a feasibility study with SCJ Alliance. They looked at a number of elements to how well the properties lined up with city goals, which plans they aligned with, what are the permissible land uses there, any physical or environmental issues that would constrain acquisition of the property or unduly burden the city, so to speak, with cleanup issues. Is there a market demand for the properties that exist down in the valley? What's the financial viability for marketing those properties? And any other remaining regulatory issues that the city would have to deal with should that acquisition be acquired or the properties be acquired. So what did we learn through that? Well, it was, there were a couple of concerns, which we'll talk about in a moment, but for the most part, the feasibility analysis was resulted in a very beneficial kind of result for the city. As we talked about with transportation issues, the acquisition of these properties helps to further the project or the concept of the East Street Connector, helping to reduce transportation impacts. And in that kind of the brewery district, it addresses multiple objectives and goals of the brewery district plan, as well as the city's comprehensive plan that was in place at the time as we're continuing to go through that update now. Also, on an environmental standpoint, there was a lot of benefit to acquiring these properties as the Deschutes River runs right through the middle of it. I think there is a pointer on here somewhere. There we go. You can kind of see the river runs right through adjacent to these properties. And so part of that is an opportunity for watershed restoration. We have water quality issues that can be addressed through some of that restoration work. And also potential for mitigating some of the impacts of other projects that the city undertakes over time. In addition, and probably one of the biggest, most noticeable benefits would be improving event parking for city-level events such as fireworks, 4th of July, Brewfest that the city just completed, and other events, plus partnership with the Craft District as they continue to improve their operations down there and provide additional offerings and opportunities for our community. So kind of looking at that transportation piece, a couple of the check marks that the acquisition of these properties would provide. And I do want to note any of the images you see here with things that are drawn on them do not indicate any kind of concept, proposed plan, formal drawing, or anything along those lines. These are really just renderings to say, okay, what can be done out there. And so we have the East Street corridor. Buying these two properties, these three parcels, allows for additional right-of-way that would be needed, and regardless if that project's to move forward. It helps reroute traffic away from North Street, reduce congestion in the brewery district. It could promote pedestrian-friendly development, as well as east side access to the Deschutes River. Currently, there is no access on this side of the public access on this side of the river. The city ownership provides more flexibility as, additional, public-private partnerships are considered, or, as, development continues to be contemplated in the Brewer or in the Deschutes Valley. Looking again at the river, an opportunity for us while still trying to help promote and achieve some of the other goals that the city was looking at is a 150-foot buffer which could be revegetated, with salmon-friendly practices, looking at, helping improve water quality for discharges that come off of this property. And those would both help water quality regulatory issues found under the total maximum daily limit or loads in the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination Systems, aka our stormwater permit and pollutant loading reduction. So, again, some of those opportunities, impervious surface removal anywhere within this 150-foot buffer, all this impervious surface, the asphalt would be removed from there. It would be replaced with native plantings, soil amendments to help improve water quality off that site. And the compensatory mitigation for any additional projects such as the East Street or the East Linwood outfall, the M Street outfall, two projects that the city has been working on for a number of years. This could provide additional wetland compensation for some of the impacts where those projects are also being contemplated. And I guess last but not least, we have the community recreation and event support. Acquisition of these properties could bring in potentially 1,500 additional parking spaces for those events, relieving much needed pressure off of our streets, and helping expand the access to Falls Fest and Brews Fest and July 4th fireworks and craft district events, and movies on the green. A lot of the stuff that Parks and Recreation is known for doing and providing high quality services to our community. As well as other needs, such as, like as mentioned earlier, the craft district, the temporary and or permanent parking spaces out there to help improve that work. So, what we also learned through this process is that a lot, and their staff have been fantastic to work with. We coordinated very closely with Executive Director Kennelly, Justin Long, and Tile, and other folks down there at Lot to provide pretty much everything that they have done on that site since they acquired it in 2011, and they did a substantial amount of work. The total property amounts to about 44 acres, and I think Lot purchased that for just over $4 million. In addition to that, they demolished some of the existing structures that were on site, and they prepared for demolition of some of the other structures on site that didn't serve, Lot's, pre-planned purpose of reclaimed water delivery, and were hazards, to the site. And so a lot of that work has been done where you see these X's. Most of the work has been done on the north end here. Some of the work down here on the south end still needs to be done. In addition, the parcel on the east side of the railroad tracks, there are 3 remaining structures that are there. They are functional structures. And so, if the city is to acquire this, the city would have to determine what the overall, future would those would be. But for the most part, anything you see on the east side of the railroad tracks has a functional, could have a functional use. Anything on the west side of the tracks, has either been dealt with or it needs to be dealt with into the future. Let's see. So what's in the contract? We tried to figure out what the appraised value is, and so we had we contracted with a local appraiser. It was agreed to by both Lot and the city. They went out and they did their work, and they found the appraised value came in at about $3.9 million. But we recognize that, and Lot recognized that there's a significant amount of work remaining to be done out there, including mostly relating to those industrial land uses, the cleanup, mitigation, and or demolition of some of the remaining structures, the boiler house, which is probably the most significant work remaining. It needs to be demolished and removed. There are some smaller structures that remain that are, de minimis in context of the entire properties of work that need to be done there. But regardless, that represents a cost to the city of Tumwater. And so we negotiated with with Lot staff to, work with them because those are really kind of negatives, or have reductions in value to the overall, purchase price of that. So those are negotiated in, and the work that needs to be done here is captured in the offered purchase price of $3,192,670. And so the work that we anticipate and we estimate needs to be done to clean up and mitigate and demolish these buildings and these structures that are there has been subtracted from the overall appraised value, for this contract. In addition, because there is some variability and some unknowns, as soon as you go subgrade and you start scratching the soil, you might find some other issues there. And Lot has, as in a further benefit to the city, has provided a kind of a risk reduction pool. Should we start doing some of this work? Should we get into demolition of the boiler house, per se? And there's some some variability in the costs for that. These funds could be used to address the unknowns in the cost there. So we have both from an environmental mitigation fund, if there's any kind of chemicals, diesels, gasolines that we might find subgrade. We have $300,000 to be able to work with Lot staff to access, and another $225,000 on mitigation for demolitions of the facilities that are here. And kind of a last, benefit to Lot. They continue to operate wastewater treatment services. We have a need to make sure that they can receive the wastewater we want to send them. And so we're making sure that we would provide a no-cost easement to Lot, make sure that they can continue providing their services and upholding their mission to the residents of Tumwater. So again, the appraised value of 3.9, a purchase price offer of 3.1, $3,192,670. This is a 5-year term contract, meaning the city would make annual payments. This is not a lump sum. It wouldn't do it one time. Lot has agreed to kind of manage the account, so to speak, and maintain at that 3% interest over time. That financing cost amounts to $240,486. So the total cost at the end of the contract term in 2030 would be $3,433,158.66. How are we going to fund that? Well, again, it's over time. It's a 5-year term, so annually, the city's general fund and stormwater fund would be paying for these properties. The stormwater, in relation to the habitat restoration that we can do there, and the general fund for the transportation and all the other elements that would benefit the city. So in total, or in annually, it would be $492,000 from the general fund and $80,000 from the stormwater fund, with an overall $2.9 million coming from general fund and $480,000 from.
Councilmember Althauser.
Thanks, Mayor. We talked about this at the June meeting, but to just revisit it, for the Environmental Mitigation Fund, if we discover significant contamination, we have a duty to fix that and rectify it. I guess, can you speak a little bit about the confidence for that mitigation fund being sufficient? Like, we've done due diligence for site inspection. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I kind of glossed over it. It was on the slide there a little bit, but we've, as part of that due diligence, we did multiple phase 1 reviews. Lot had also done a number of studies, on that site while they were there. Part of the unknown for us right now. And so let me just go back and summarize, all those kind of studies that had been done previously didn't return any significant concerns for the city that, there was any major or unknown environmental mitigation. From a land use perspective, most of that was storage and the areas used for storage or transportation, of materials. And so we don't anticipate, any underground storage tanks that we would find that might be kind of full of petroleum products or things along those lines. And so, we're very confident that that's, that unknown is not going to creep up in, as we start to engage the projects. However, there was a pipeline that did exist on the site previously, and that's where some of the unknowns we don't know, until we actually go in and we start, going subgrade. But it's a small area, and we felt confident that $300,000, in addition to some of the other negotiations that we made with Lot, would be more than sufficient to be able to cover any expenses for the city on that.
Thank you.
Great. Councilmember Von Holtz.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple things. I know that Lot was using, it must have been on the east side of the property for storage, for their storage and for the procession used. So, I'm guessing Lot can figure out what to do with their storage. I'm thinking about unintended consequences for the procession. Have we?
So So what's up next for us kind of on these things? And one of them is an existing tenant, Procession of the Species. They do have some of their stuff stored down there, and we've committed to, having a conversation with them about what what either long-term or short-term needs the city might have. So we will have those conversations with them, and there's no need, if we close this agreement, that they have to move their stuff out by, the end of October or something like that. That conversation will be on.
Okay. And then another thing, this, of course, this acquisition will make that E Street connector easier when the time comes. And I know that the neighbors, our community members who live on Roberts have been here many times. And when I was on the planning commission, they came and talked to us at the planning commission. And I know you're not the director but I guess I want to make sure that the city's managing expectations. And so when they read this in the jolt, I guess I would just ask that we reach out to those neighbors and kind of manage expectations. That doesn't mean that the East Street connector is going to happen tomorrow. Yes, does this help that planning? Just so they understand that we hear them and we're thinking of the impacts to our
Correct. I mean,
community
this acquisition of these properties don't literally do any of these things immediately.
Right.
They put the city in
Right.
in a better position to be able to work with, neighbors and partners, to be able to have some flexibility of where easements go or how projects are aligned and things like that, right? So that's the benefit of being part of the conversation versus more of just kind of an external partner or external agency kind of commenting on permitting or external review.
Thank you.
Any questions on kind of the essential elements of the contract?
Councilmember Swarthout.
A couple of questions. So on the, we have been doing the brownfield study, so I wasn't sure if that had something to do with those properties, because I understand that they're not coming back.
You guys are all getting ahead of me.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, wait, really? Oh, there's more?
There's more.
Oh,
Wait,
sorry.
there's more.
Sorry.
All right, just finish and we'll.
There's always more,
I
right?
thought you were done. Sorry.
So really kind of what does this mean for the city? If we were to acquire the properties, what are some of the initial actions? What are some of the initial needs for us? Again, I said it doesn't solve those long-term problems or, resolve, habitat restoration needs or put parking in place at the time, but there are some things that are immediately necessary for the city. We need to start, we need to think about, storage structures, the warehouses that are down there. They require minimal care. But how does the city want to manage those? There's vegetation, grass grows, so what are we doing to help maintain those properties, things like that, in an acceptable way. There's also access issues across the railroad. This contract would close or cancel lots agreement with the railroad, the Union Pacific, and so the city would have to renegotiate what access looks like to get over there for various events and things like that. The site security is currently managed and funded by Tumwater Development LLC. So, we would just be part of the conversation with them about what things that are happening down there. From what they do for these buildings here, they're well secured and not a frequent target for vandalism. So, we don't anticipate site security being a major issue. However, as being a part of our city currently, we're still informed and still engaged with the conversation around site security. And then structure management, as I mentioned earlier, about the existing tenant Procession of the Species. They do have some stuff in there. We want to make sure that we're working with them. And then the demolition of the non-functional spaces that we know that exist on the east or the west side of the river, on the north side of the property. So those are the things we know we need to kind of engage, fairly quickly after this project concludes. So where do we go from here? Well, one, we're going to execute the real estate contract, assuming your approval this evening. We've already assembled a management staff team to really kind of define what are the roles and responsibilities, which departments are taking on what efforts, trying the best we can to identify a work plan, schedule, and budget based on what we know that is out there. Looking at the Brownfields grant, how do we integrate that if possible? And I don't know if Lisa was about to step in on that one. And then funding considerations. How do we make sure that we're funding this work? Are there grants that are available that would help us, maybe pay for some of the mitigation or pay for the restoration work too? And so we're constantly keeping our eyes open for that, and including some significant watershed grants that we're looking at, might help with the restoration side of things. And so I guess my goal really, and I haven't really talked much with the team, but ideally we'd have a plan together by the end of the year, and so that way we can start executing that plan, because we do have a terminus, particularly to be able to access those additional funds that have been provided by law at the end of the 5-year contract period. I think it's June of the year following the contract end or the following last payment. So there's some time after the end of the contract period, which would expire September 15th, 2030, which would then make the beginning of that next week, 9/15, or next month, 9/15, 2025, for the closing of this agreement. And kind of the last piece, we've kind of touched upon it a little bit, like how else do these properties help align us, the city's priorities and city's goals? And, as I've mentioned, we have public-private partnership potentials that puts the city, firmly in the conversation. Looking at, a public planning process would be necessary to really kind of determine what the end uses of this property are beyond, the way it's being used today. And so, I'm not, trying to envision how any of this is actually playing itself out. These are just, how does this acquisition align with, already accepted goals or objectives, for the city. There's a planned action EIS, environmental impact statement, that is under consideration as well. And so how does that put the city into that conversation in a more real way? The brewery district plan, as I mentioned, is the acquisition of these properties, aligned or help promote, a significant number of those zoning and district plan initiatives. But there's always a challenge, and part of that challenge when you consider any kind of development is that, it also is the 100-year floodplain. And some work that we've done previously, recognizes to mitigate that, for development needs, is anywhere between $2 and $8 million just to mitigate, the flooding. So if there's any kind of development down there that can sustain itself, or withstand flooding, there's some minimal investment that would have to happen there. And so I think that's my last slide. And so staff recommendation would be to authorize the mayor to sign the real estate contract with Lot Clean Water Alliance for the purchase of the Deschutes Valley properties.
Any additional questions?
I have a question.
Councilmember Gabi.
So, Dan, before we went on break, we had at one of our city council public hearing, maybe 2-3 meetings back, a certain gentleman came into the chamber and was talking about that he has a well on that property that was broken into. Remember that? So is that would that be part of this deal?
No, I think that's on a property that's farther north and owned by Tumwater LLC, I believe.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Kathy.
Thanks for the extended understanding of all of this, because I had some people ask how we could be purchasing this. Has the owner of the property decided to piecemeal sale of that, of what is known as the brewery property? Well, how are we able to do this? And
the owner of the property is the Lot Clean Water Alliance, and they own 3 of those parcels that were identified on those images there. You saw they were kind of highlighted. Those aren't owned by any other property owner other than the Lot Clean Water Alliance, and they've declared those surplus and no longer have use for them. And so the city would be acquiring those properties in whole.
did they purchase those from the owner?
Yes, back in 2011.
So one of the answers is yes, the Patel, the owner, is willing to sell pieces of this, parcels.
I don't think Patel was the owner at the time in 2011. I'd have to go back and kind of look at that. I don't have, who the owner was specifically, but it was a legal process on defined property on parcel boundaries that exist. So the brewery property, there are multiple different parcel lines that exist. And so at the time, when the property was acquired and kind of the previous uses of the property were kind of considered, there were no identified, development concepts or formal uses. And so at the time, I would believe the landowner was really just looking to get rid of parcels that they could. And Lot had identified that need for that reclaimed water treatment facility to be located kind of at the toe of the slope there off of Cleveland. And that's where, that's what, inspired Lot at the time to acquire that property.
Yeah, I thank you. I remember when Lot purchased that, and I think one of the same questions came up. So it is a piece of what the original brewery property used to be.
It is, yes, definitely.
Is.
So it was used by the brewery, but it already had multiple parcels that were identified on that property.
Yeah, good. So there's no concern or no danger or anything, which was the question. city's safe to own it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So can I, just to clarify, Councilmember Kathy, Mr. Patel still continues to own the property that has the large warehouse on it. So these three properties actually, we would be his neighbor essentially. So these three parcels immediately surround the warehouse itself, which is the property that's owned by Mr. Patel, as well as he also owns the larger brewery structure up on what we call the knoll. So his ownership is not affected by this at all. It remains the city's goal to be able to do the planned action EIS process, to be able to better understand and articulate what the challenges are on that site, particularly with regard to environmental contamination, but also what some of the opportunities will be in the future for redevelopment by helping to identify, infrastructure improvements to serve the area, addressing the issue of, as Dan mentioned, this is in the entirety is in the floodplain. So how do you manage growth and development in an area that is encumbered by floodplain regulations? And so actually for the city to be in the driver's seat to a certain degree with actual ownership in the valley makes that planned action EIS process that much more beneficial in terms of our regulatory role as the land use authority inside city limits, and puts us in a position to be able to really move that planned action EIS process forward in the collaborative fashion that we've identified. So this is could be described as planets aligning slowly, multiple years in the works, but this is a very strategic and advantageous purchase for the city of Tumwater generally, but specifically with regard to that planned action EIS process, which we hope will really facilitate and instigate redevelopment of the brewery properties, hopefully in the next years, without any qualifier on the number.
I think we'll still be around.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Lisa, for that explanation. That's kind of the question, was behind the questions that two different people have asked me, and I hope they're watching tonight and have gotten their answer from you and Dan, and I don't have to re-explain anything. So thank you. I think it's very good. I can remember some of the progress going backwards, working toward this, and I like our chance to enhance and protect the river. I think that's good too. So thank you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Swarthout.
Oh, thank you. I just appreciate the opportunity to be able to acquire this land, just not only from the idea that the perspective that we'll be having eventually when we connect the trails that'll connect to the brewery park, that there may be some potential for more recreation along the river there, but protecting that piece of it as well. I always go a little nuts when we talk about developing the craft district and our brew fest. We are very popular and we don't have places to park. And so to be able to have places that we can have our public safe places to park and everything, and that's convenient. So I think that's really essential as well. And then also kudos, sometimes it's difficult when we have to chink up our rates on our stormwater and our water, but this is how we prepare to be able to pay for these sort of things. So we don't have to go into debt, and that we have the money available to be able to make these kinds of purchases. And so we're nimble enough to be able to do this. And so I appreciate your work on this, so that we've positioned ourselves that we're able to be able to make this purchase. And so with that, I would like to make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the real estate contract with the Lot Clean Water Alliance for the purchase of the Deschutes Valley properties.
I second it.
It's been moved by Councilmember Swarthout, seconded by Councilmember Kathy. Any discussion on the motion? All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, so now we are to committee reports, and the first committee report is Public Health and Safety, Councilmember Gabi.
Thank you, Mayor. So we have our meeting on September 9, and on that agenda, I do see a school resource officer's contract. And if my memory serves me right, I think we may or may not have another agenda item. I will know when I meet with the city manager at the end of the week. Am I right? Okay.
Great, thank you. Next is General Government Committee, Councilmember Althauser.
Thank you, Mayor. The General Government Committee has not met, and we do not meet until September.
Great, thank you. Next is the Public Works Committee, Councilmember Swarthout.
Thank you, Mayor. We haven't met, but we will be meeting this Thursday, and we will be receiving a briefing on the 2025 comp plan update for the transportation plan. And then we'll also be talking about getting the authority to solicit bids for the Second Avenue pedestrian and bicycle improvement project. And that's going to be that really fun amoeba. Have we decided what shape that is yet? Cannot wait for that new, not a roundabout, it's the amoeba-shaped roundabout-y thing that they'll be doing at Second Avenue. So that will be on our agenda at 8 o'clock. So wake up and be part of the meeting.
Great, thank you. And then we will have Budget and Finance Committee will be meeting this Friday. Two items will be going over the monthly report, and then the intergovernmental cooperative agreement, and that will be coming to council. And I believe at a work session to start with. So more information on that. Now we will go to Mayor City Administrator report, and we'll start out with Administrator Parks.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. Just a couple of things this evening. So I wanted to update you on Tumwater's crisis response program. We are still on track to launch that program on October 1st. The program is going to basically include 8 employees. That's 4 crisis peer specialists and 4 crisis clinicians working in 2 teams of 4 people each, generally covering the city for a 24-hour coverage. Chief Hurley actually participated in the interview process last week with Olympic Health and Recovery Services. This program is unique in our region in that it is going to be run out of our fire department. Because of that, we were able to actually get a grant from the State Healthcare Authority. So for this first couple of years, this program is not going to cost the city of Tumwater anything in terms of cash. With it running out of the fire department, that is a different thing. However, we are collaborating internally, both with our fire department and police department. I know there was a meeting just the other day, as well as coordinating with TCOM to ensure that dispatch for these types of calls is managed and handled, given that it is run through our fire department versus law enforcement, as typical in the region. So the agreement with Olympic Health and Recovery Services will be before the council for consideration in September, so we can facilitate that October 1 start date. We are just putting the finishing touches on that agreement and running it through legal review, and hopefully we'll bring it to you likely in perhaps at the September 9th Public Health and Safety Committee meeting if we can get it ready. If not, we'll need to come probably directly to council at one of your later September business meetings so we can under consideration. Just to update you, the 2025 pavement maintenance program is continuing. There is one big change that we made. So in the initial proposal for this year's paver, we were going to repave all of the roundabouts on Little Rock. We discovered, but not the sections in between the roundabouts. So we discovered, however, that the cost for traffic control for doing that work was about $300,000 just for the traffic control. And so instead of separating out the roundabouts from the actual connecting points of roadway between those for that amount of money, we decided to delay the repaving of the roundabouts until a period of time in the future when we can do that as a full project because of that costly traffic control cost. And so we've added a couple of additional areas into the project as a replacement of those of the roundabouts. So that'll be 2nd Avenue from DeSoto to Custer, 32nd Avenue from R.W. Johnson to Ferguson, Dennis Court, and then Lee Street from 6th Avenue to Capitol. And I want to give a shout out to our transportation crew as well as the contractors, but also our communications team. Marnie has been doing a lot of work to get the word out around where these things are happening and what people can expect. She's also worked collaboratively with our GIS department to make sure that there's an interactive map on the website. So as people come to visit us online, they can have really quick access to see what's happening next, generally speaking. So kudos all around to the collaboration of our staff and the community. I wanted to just mention that, and we'll have more of these announcements as they become finalized, but hiring is going really well right now. Particularly, we had several deputy director positions that are vacant and have been vacant for, well, in the case of Ted, it's been vacant since Mary Heather left. But then also, Brad's promotion has left a vacancy in CDD. We are making progress in hiring deputy directors for both Ted and CDD as well as WERS. That is a new position that was authorized in last year's budget for the utilities. And we are getting a lot of really good applicants with some really excellent qualifications. And that's just at the deputy director level. We've also got a water conservation position and other positions across the board where we're having really good success in getting top quality applicants. So really, really pleased with how our hiring is going. And then just a heads up, to keep in mind as we're driving around the Tumwater streets, the first day of school in Tumwater is September 3rd for both the middle school and the high school, and September 5th for the elementary school. So please be sure to pay extra attention when traveling our streets, both in the mornings and afternoons, as our kids are getting back into the school year routine. So that's all I have.
Great, thank you. So for my report, even though we've been on a council recess for the last 3 weeks, apparently there's been a lot of stuff still going on. There was a company that we did a ribbon cutting for in the industrial area, and that is called Coyote. They do machinery, and they do assembly and distribution from there. I attended an AWC legislative meeting. I also attended the Thurston Fair welcoming presentation where they had the elected officials. And also during the Thurston County Fair, I actually had the privilege of being one of the judges for the pie contest, which I was told last year there was 23 pies. This year there was 8. I'm glad I didn't have to taste 23 pies. That would have been a lot. And then I attended National Night Out, and that was a very, very great event. I attended on the August 13th, I attended the Thurston County Chamber meeting, and they had the Seattle FIFA was doing a presentation there. I filled in for Councilmember Dahlhoff at the lot meeting, and we passed majority of what was done there. Again, last Saturday was a very busy day. I attended former fire captain Lyle Smith's memorial. It was an amazing turnout that was held at Evergreen Christian Center, and it was packed. And Councilmember Swarthout also attended. There was an amazing amount of people. He had quite an impact. And for those who don't know, he was our Santa on our truck that fire truck that we did at holiday time, and he was former Tumwater Fire Department. I also attended Brewfest, and that turnout was great. I want to thank park staff. That was a huge, I don't think I ever remember seeing that many people at Brewfest. And just as a kind of a side note, the parking for people who pay for parking, the funds went to Special Olympics, and they raised $4,700 just on the parking. So I know people get annoyed with paying to park, but it really does go for a good cause. And so I was very happy about that. One thing I wanted to mention, and I want to bring it up again for council consideration, is really wanting to see if maybe we can get to the hybrid process for our work sessions. I think being in person makes a lot of difference when we have a lot of these discussions. And I know that if we are in a work session, that sometimes there just needs to be more conversation. And I think those conversations happen better when everyone is in person. So I would like council members to reconsider maybe doing that. So that will be up for future discussion, but I just wanted to open up that particular conversation for the future. So it's hybrid, Peter, and you don't have to be there, but it would be nice for those who could be there. So I'm going to go to council reports, and I'm going to start off with Council Member Kathy.
That's good, because I'll be very brief. But first, I want to know what pie did you like the best? What kind?
Oh, they had berries and mixed berries, and there was a blueberry pie that was just amazing, and then they also had one that was mixed berry that had almost all of them, raspberry, strawberries, blueberries, and it was also very good. So they had two different categories, single berry and multi-berry, and those are the two I like the best. So
Did you come home with any?
they auctioned them off. They were pretty popular. I didn't quite make it into getting to bring one of those home. So that
Yeah.
was kind of disappointing.
Well, you can see where my mind is. It's still on
Yes.
things like pies and berries and all the good things that I've been enjoying. And I have no report, no meetings.
Great. Thank you. Councilmember Jefferson.
Yes, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes, a little
Okay.
echoey, but I can hear you.
Okay, I had several meetings, but I'm just gonna recap the highlights because it's getting late. So on the 24th of July, the EMS, we met and we just discussed the budget. The 2026 budget reflected a 2.88% increase in the 2027 budget, showed a 1% increase. And we discussed the success of the Suboxone pilot, operation efficiency enhancements, and ongoing projects like the ESC server reconfiguration and stroke prevention evaluation. I also attended the Tumwater Hopes meeting last week, and we discussed the coalition survey update, and we wanted to ask about programs or trainings that the community might find useful. One negative is we had a training called Hidden in Plain Sight, which I was all excited about, but no one attended that training. So we have a problem with advertising. We're spending all this money on training and just getting the word out, but we're not having people show up, so we got to figure out what we're doing wrong here. Next is, I attended Olympia and Beyond today, where we discussed that our annual meeting is September 4th at Indian Summer Golf Club. And we also had an update on the World Cup fan zone that we talked about the marketing plan, and I shared with them that our city council voted no to fund because the cost share was not proportionate and we didn't see what the benefits were to Tumwater. So there's more discussion on that. And that's my report.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Von Holtz.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Swarthout, Mayor Pro Tem Dahlhoff, and I also got to partake in National Night Out. We were invited by the Eagles Landing neighborhood, and they had root beer floats, and it was a really nice evening to sit and be in community with them. It was a busy day Saturday. I didn't get to attend the memorial service or Brewfest, but I did get to go to the Firefighters Community Foundation event, and I thought that was a nice cap on a day to remember former Captain Lyle Smith. It was a great event, and it was fun to be around a bunch of Tumwater firefighters for such a good cause. And their Together was there, and they did a presentation about how a local family lost their home due to a fire, and the foundation was there for them and provided for them. So that was a really great event. I'm gonna go on a little. My heart has been really heavy. And Councilmember Jefferson and I have had text messages about this, and I've been on several email chains and had several phone calls. But Thurston County YWCA is in big trouble, and I wrote out what I wanted to read, but I just want the community to be aware that there's a possibility that it's going to have to close. And for more than 80 years, the YWCA has stood as a place of hope, safety, and empowerment for women, families, and community members in need. Losing this organization would be the loss of essential programs and services, and it would be the loss of a vital partner in the work to build a healthier, more resilient community. This is personal for me. Growing up, my mom worked for the YWCA in Tacoma. She worked at the women's shelter. And I saw firsthand the compassion, the strength, and the life-saving impact of the YWCA. And being exposed to that work kind of helped shape who I am today and wanting to serve the community. I see what's happening to the YWCA, as like it's like the first chip to fall, right? I've been in several board meetings on boards that I serve on where we're trying to we can make it through the next year, or we can make it through the next 2 years. But this is all very real, and these are essential services. So I just want everybody to be aware and keep the board members for the YWCA and the people who receive services in your thoughts right now.
Thank you. Councilmember Agabi.
Thank you, Mayor. I have not attended any meetings since we went on break. But one thing I would like to do is to go on break. So I have been home with 3 people who make a whole bunch of mess. So I'm glad that school is starting on time. I can't wait for them to leave. So that's all I gotta say.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Agabi. Councilmember Althauser.
Thank you, Mayor. I too have not had any meetings during our recess, so I have no report, and I'll spare you the commentary on my cleanliness at home. And
Okay. All right. It has been summer, right? All right. Councilmember Swarthout.
Well, I did have a couple of meetings, so I chair the Thurston County Mitigation Collaborative, and so we did have a meeting on July 28th, and we reviewed our budget, and so we all take care of our own budgets within our jurisdictions. So we just discussed those, and then there are some updates to the interlocal agreement, and so we discussed those changes. They'll be going to the Citizens Advisory Work Group, and then they'll be coming back to the jurisdictions, or coming back to the executive committee's review in October, and then we'll be bringing the ILAs back to our jurisdictions. So that'll be coming up. I did some remarks for the mayor at the opening. They did an event at the summer at the Schmidt, and thank you for Jason for some fun little remarks that I got to make. And yeah, and I did attend the funeral for Captain Smith, and so that was really appreciate the opportunity to do that. So thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Mayor, could I make a comment?
Yes, Councilmember Kathy.
Quickly? I would love to talk to Kelly and Eileen if they want to do it together. I have a bit of experience with the YWCA, and I know what you're talking about. And this city has been very supportive over the years of the Y. And I think there are some things, I'm saying this because you talked about such a heavy heart. I think there are some things that they could think about and maybe reach out and do, not just to our city, but in general. And I'd like to give you some the Y's been through dips like this before. So just wanted to say that, and opportunity for the thanking Tumwater for the support over probably all 80 years of the YWCA. So thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, with no other business, we are adjourned for the evening. Thank you.